Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Chris with InsideTheU. Thanks for stopping by. Just got done with Miami Hurricanes spring practice number 4, back in action after a week off because of spring break. Good to be back out here. Good to see the guys. They're not in full pads quite yet. I asked Coach Cristobal about that, and he said probably on Saturday, which will be their first full padded practice. It'll be their 6th overall, so that'll be something to watch for then. But as far as today, before I get into my observations and more comments from Cristobal that stood out to me, shout out to the former Hurricanes who I saw here at practice. You know, Cam Ward was here. That was good to see. Xavier Restrepo as well. Good to see these guys. They got Pro Day on Monday coming up. But also some other former guys, some guys that certainly we covered quite a bit at InsideTheU when we first got the site started. But looking back, Lamar Miller was here, Alan Hearns, and Travis Benjamin. So shout out to those 3 guys for being back out here. It's always good seeing former players like that, as well as guys like Cam and Xavier. They're now former Canes. Okay, but let's get into some observations from practice today. I was able to be out here for 5 periods at the beginning, so obviously not seeing everything, but it was good. It was good to see these guys in action, and a couple things that stood out to me. I want to start with the cornerback, Damari Brown. I didn't see him out here the first week, but you see him right here going through some drills, going through some back pedal stuff, which is great to see. Good to see from Damari. Certainly is a guy that needs to step up and be one of these top flight corners on the team. You know, after what happened last year with the injury, not playing very much at all. And he's a guy that they're certainly counting on, and hopefully that they do well. But speaking of cornerbacks, you know, safety Zachariah Poyser spoke after practice, and I asked him about who's kind of the leader of this group. So many new guys, new faces, upperclassmen transferring in, young guys, but I asked Poyser, you know, who's the leader of this group in the secondary? And he said Chuck, you know, Charles Brantley, the cornerback from Michigan State. It's a guy that's very vocal, you know, on the field, instructing players where they need to go. So that stood out to me too, and good to hear. You know, that's what spring ball is all about, kind of learning more about these new players and seeing them in action. You certainly watch film and kind of talk to other people about them, but it's good seeing these guys out here. And another thing that stood out to me was with this practice during this observation period, it was a conversation with Francis Mauigoa and head coach Mario Cristobal, and watching these combo blocking drills. As you can see here, it's good seeing Francis. Certainly a highly coachable player. Mario has always raved about him. And you see here, Mario's kind of giving some extra instruction to Francis, you know, and it's good to see. You know, you always hear about Mario, right? He's good with the offensive line, but what does it look like? Not only what does it look like right here, but I wanted to know what did Coach have to say? So I asked Francis after practice, you know, what did Coach have to say to you? What was he kind of teaching you and instructing you? And he said, look, it was something that he really felt like Mario wanted him to use this technique a little bit later. He liked the technique that Francis used on this particular play, a run play there against the defensive lineman. But he just wanted him to kind of wait a little bit, you know, certainly move his feet, pump his feet. That was a term that he used, and he liked the technique. It was just he wanted him to use it a little bit at a different time. And certainly that's just a small detail that Cristobal is kind of giving these offensive linemen. And Francis, like I said, he's always been real receptive of coaching and wants to get better. And Coach Cristobal certainly raved about him after practice as well. When reporters asked about how Francis is doing, you know, kind of going into year 3. Kind of another note from Francis, you know, I asked him about just that connection with him and Inez Cooper. I mean, these are 2 guys that have been playing alongside each other there on that right side. Cooper at right guard, Francis at right tackle. And yeah, Francis said, yeah, they've got a great connection. And they actually said today in practice, they kind of flipped a little bit between guard and tackle, the both of them. But I think what stood out to me the most about what Francis said about that connection is those 2 guys know each other and know how to play off of each other. And sometimes they don't need to say a lot. They know how each other's going to play, either on certain plays. So I think that connection where you can just have a really strong side, it doesn't matter if it's left or right, but having a really strong side, I thought that's really important for an offensive line. Guys that return, but not just that they've played a lot individually, but next to each other. And these 2 guys certainly have. And Francis also said Coach Cristobal was kind of giving them a hard time and wanted them to compete more in individual drills. Sometimes they're together quite a bit, wanted them to kind of go at each other and kind of out-duel one another there during individual position drills there. So just another thing with those 2, kind of a note there that stood out to me. But again, good to see these guys get the coaching that they want. You always hear about offensive linemen, talk about what Cristobal kind of means to them. And again, just kind of seeing it firsthand and then finding out a little bit more information, what exactly was going on there. So when Coach Cristobal was talking about the team and how things are looking, I definitely wanted to ask him about the wide receivers. It's a big question mark to me of how good these guys can be, and I find it fascinating to get this kind of evaluation on the wide receivers when Carson Beck is not out here as a full participant. Able to see him out here again, see the drill right now, kind of just doing this light throwing. It is good to see him. This is from today's practice. You know, I know I showed this before, this same thing. So clearly he's making some sort of progress with being able to do this. So that's good to see. But Cristobal said he likes what all these guys are doing. He kind of rattled off the whole list of guys at wide receiver and tight end, likes how they're making plays and how they're doing on one-on-one plays. And the very first thing he said was he likes that they're making contested catches. And I want to kind of interrupt with his comment because I want to take it back to observation that I had in practice during those periods earlier on. It stood out to me with Josh Moore, made a really nice contested catch. It was only probably 10 yards, but with his size and ability there, that's what you want to see from him. And he did. He made a contested catch right there, and that stood out to me. And I thought the other wide receivers, the other freshmen, you know, again, Dalen Upshaw making plays. He had a nice route there. You know, I saw him make a good route, you know, a short route, but he just has this really good job of kind of changing directions or planting his foot and getting upfield, or just kind of keeping the cornerback off balance because of how sharp he's kind of running some with his cutting ability. And that's standing out to me kind of more and more that I see Dalen here in action. And then Malachi Toney running over the middle, making a nice catch and getting upfield. So all three of these guys are making plays. And going back to what Cristobal had to say, he didn't single out Josh Moore for contested catches. He just thinks in general these guys are doing a good job of it. And I'm just kind of providing a little bit of observation because I saw it today. And also he did make a note of this with his freshman group. Again, this was these trio of guys were guys that I heard positive things about before spring practice even started. Once they got on campus in January, I've been hearing some positive things about them. So Cristobal mentioned that these three guys are getting to practice early. Their day is starting very early, 5:30 in the morning, he says, doing some voluntary stuff. And he feels like they definitely know that their learning process, they're changing, you know, to the college level. They definitely feel like it has to be accelerated because of what this team needs from them. And he feels like these three guys are doing a good job of doing everything they can to kind of speed up that process. But it's not just the learning. You're coming out here watching them make plays in practice. So that's a good sign. A couple other guys made plays that just being out there for a little bit. But JoJo Trader, look, this is what he brings to the table. Saw it in practice today, saw it in the past, and everybody saw it in the bowl game where he can make a catch and then he can kind of get out of his, you know, catch and get yards after the catch, kind of explode out of it. And I saw today, maybe a 15-yard catch over the middle, but because of where the defender was behind him, he was able to kind of race by him and kind of get into the end zone, you know, kind of just outrun him, you know, just kind of create separation, explode with good acceleration. And I think that's what he's going to give this team. It's not necessarily just going to be about running deep and catching deep balls, which I do think he's got the capability of doing that. And I do expect that from him because of what Carson Beck brings to the table and knowing Carson's mentality, watching him in the games that I watched him last year at Georgia. He wants to throw the ball deep, and I think JoJo's going to benefit from it. But it's not just the deep balls through the air. You know, I think JoJo's a guy that's going to be able to take some good medium catches there over the middle and then explode for long gains. I think you're going to see that from him. And it's not necessarily taking really short passes and exploding upfield. I think, you know, this medium to deep, but I think he's just going to be able to kind of explode past the secondary. I think that's something that JoJo's going to be able to bring to the team. Another guy that made a big play while we were out there, and I probably should have mentioned it earlier, and that's safety Dylan Day. A really nice interception. It's kind of an on-the-out pass. He was guarding Luka Gilbert there, and Emory Williams threw it, and Dylan just kind of got his hands in the way, tipped it up, and got his feet in bounds and came down with the interception. So good to see an interception out of him, and we'll see how his spring continues to progress. But one thing that always stood out to me last year was, even as a young player, even in the role that he was in, just kept hearing positive things about him, and maybe that they have something there. So we'll see. Maybe it's only going to be special teams this year with the guys they have on the roster, but just good to see a guy like that, a young player trying to make an impact in spring ball, and a nice interception on this one-on-one against Luka Gilbert. Again, Emery was a little bit off on the throws that I saw today. Again, not out here for the full practice or anything, but just kind of watching him. He's usually really accurate, just didn't see that today. And you know, this was a little bit of an example of it, but I think it was just a really good play by Dylan on this interception. But that's going to wrap it up with me. I try to get video of every position group, at least something from everybody, so I'll definitely put that out there. Shout out to everybody that has already watched all the practice videos. And just a reminder, or maybe I haven't made this clear enough, there are certain guys we're not supposed to be filming out here. If they're injured, we're not supposed to have them in videos, and I understand it. That's just the rules that they're put in place. So I know some people have asked about certain guys, or maybe I haven't talked about certain guys. Sometimes it's for those reasons. I know it's very complicated. We're just trying to do our best to navigate everything and all the rules in place. But definitely drop in the comments below. Let me know what you think about this team. Are you getting more encouragement from some of the things you're hearing, not just from myself, but from other people? Are there some things that are concerning you? Because not everything is going to be great. That's how it works. Are there some things that you're concerned about? Definitely drop in the comments below. I always like hearing what you have to say, but definitely want to thank everybody for watching these videos. Thank you for your support, and take care.